Morning, everybody. So what I wanted to do today is mostly finish up lesson 8, which covers templates. Near the end of the demonstration last Thursday, I goofed up when I was trying to copy and paste information into both of the asides. And it's something, I don't know, maybe it's because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. But it's easy to forget when you have to go back and forth between live view and design view. And you have to make sure that both are in the same views. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to finish this up, paste the content in there the way it's supposed to be pasted, add the needed selectors to the right aside for the images and the quote, or the, not quotes, but little captions. And then show you how to do it manually. For example, I sometimes, I don't copy and paste like this that often. It's mostly the main content that I will, basic paragraph tags that I'll paste, and it will automatically conform to the selectors that I've created. So let's give that a whirl, because it's, as I said, it's easy to get goofed up. So hopefully I don't get goofed up today. I've practiced and made sure that all is good. So remember that we have our template, and this is the child page that was created from that template. And I know that it's a child page because we can see that in my template, I had created the 3 editable regions. And remember, that's something too, that if you want to create an editable regions in your template. So if I go back to the DWT file over here, you don't see anything. But let's say I wanted to create an editable region in my header. It wouldn't be a good idea to do, but I have it selected. I can select in the tag selector, the header. Okay. And then in order to do that, remember, if you go to insert and you go to template and you want to go to editable regions, it's grayed out. But when you see that, then that means you need to go from live view to design view. And now I can go to edit, or rather insert, template, and notice editable region is available to me. Okay, now I don't want to insert an editable region in there, but that gives you an idea that if I wanted to add them, then I could go back to that. So what they did is they said, and it's true, you can bring in content from any other source once you have structured and styled your page. And that's pretty common, just copy paste. And the 2 sources that they made available for us was number 1, it was this untitled, no, it was, where was it? It's the sidebar 8 info. You can see that we have an image and we have a caption and an image and a caption and so on. And over on the top here, we have our block quotes. How do I know they're block quotes? Because this is an HTML page. And when I select in here, I can see that I can have a block quote selected. But what I want to do is let's first make sure that I'm in design view, because this is critical for pasting it so that I don't goof up. And then what I do is I don't want the block quote, but I want to select the entire aside. And I will substitute one aside for the other. Now that's rare, and that I find to be risky. Oftentimes, if I'm going to add something like a block quote or text, I will do it manually, or I'll copy paste minimal elements. So what I want to do, again, make sure that I'm in design view, make sure that the entire aside is selected, and then I'm going to copy, Command C, boom. Now I can go back to my untitled page that I have here, but remember, I'm in live view. So I have to switch and I have to go back to design view. And if I click anywhere inside the left aside, then I come down here and in the tag selector, make sure that the entire aside is selected. And with the entire aside selected, now I can paste, and you can see that the, ta-da, worked beautifully. That the quotes that we're adding are conform to how we have styled them. And now I can, if I wish, go back to live view. And that looks really nice. Now, if you wanted to add one of your own block quotes, and this is probably more common than anything, that what you would probably do is that before the, you can put it wherever you want, but let's put it right after Franklin Delano Roosevelt's quote. Let's just put a fake quote. Right after this block quote, it's just easier, I think, to go ahead, and you can do this in live view, but do it in the code, is I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor right after the end of the block quote, but before the end of the aside. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my own opening and closing tags for block quote. Okay, so there's block quote. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the closing tag, whoops, come on, for the block quote. And now I need to put a space between them. I kind of like putting them on separate lines. I just find it easier, like so. And then I need to put a space for the quote itself, which is going to be inserted in paragraph tags. So I'll just go ahead and put in a paragraph tag. Okay, so that's my P tag. And I want to put in my closing tag for the P tag. And because it's going to be in that quote, I'll just leave it there for the time being. And then to use the proper syntax for the person who wrote the quote would be a cite tag. So I'll go ahead and I'll put a space down here. It doesn't matter how many spaces you put. Let me go ahead and there we go. So the next line, now I'll go ahead and I'll put the cite tag. And I'll put the closing tag for the cite tag. There you go. So I'm going to put in here, and it's just a fake quote. It's just all good men and women. And I forgot to put a little quote here. There we go. Come to the aid of your country. If you're wondering where the hell I got that, it used to be something that I learned years and years and years ago when I was in high school. It was a practice quote you would use when you're learning to type. So there's my quote. And let's look and see what I have. There we go. So it's gone to a couple lines. Let me go ahead and add that end quote. There we go. And why it's coming up as a double quote, I don't know. So let's go ahead and there we go. And now I can go into the site and I'll just put that, and the author of that is anonymous. So, I find it much easier if I, to work in live view whenever I can, because more often than not, when you work in design view, the organization of the page is all messed up and it's really kind of difficult to figure out what works and what isn't working. So I will do it in smaller chunks rather than to take an entire section and paste it in there. I don't know, I just find that I have fewer mistakes when I do that. So the next thing that we wanted to add is to the right aside over here. So I'm going to click anywhere in here just to make sure that I have the aside selected. And now I'm going to go back to that sidebar 8 info, and I'm going to click anywhere in what we're going to add for the right side. So we have 3 images and we have 3 captions, but I want to make sure that I select the whole thing. Now, something that interesting that I noticed is that they put all of this inside a section tag. And if you already had a section tag in your aside, fortunately, this would replace it all. But if you didn't know to add that, that could be very important. Section tags are useful for isolating just that sections or regions of a page so that you can, if you're going to specify a certain kind of look or appearance to that, to an area of a page, it will help you to create a custom class for that area. And that's sort of what we're doing here. So with just a little piece of the section, it could be just a figure or whatever selected in here. Again, I want to make sure that I'm in design view to be able to cut and paste or copy paste. And I'm going to select not just the section, but the whole article, or the whole aside rather. And then I'm going to hit Command C for copy. Okay. And now I go back to my untitled page and I've clicked in here, but if I paste it in here, it didn't paste everything. That was where I was messing up last time. I forgot that I have to go back into, so let's undo that. Let's go back into design view. And that's where the, notice that that right aside is over to the left now. It's all goofy. And so now what I can do is I can come in here and I can select the entire aside. And now I can paste it. And notice that they're in there. Now I'm getting, let's go back over here to live view and see what happens. And notice that it pasted perfectly. But if I go back to design view, I'm looking at it and it looks like I have broken links and I'm wondering, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong again? So I have yet to understand the reasoning why we have to switch back and forth from time to time and Dreamweaver from design view to live view. It's not clear to me why there are restrictions or why there are limitations. And oftentimes I'll just forget, oh yeah, in order to do that, I have to go over to design view, or I have to switch back to live view. Okay. So the other things that we need to do now, and this is what you'll notice, you should notice, is that by default, that when you insert an image, it's automatically flush left. We want it to be centered. You'll also notice that when we added the caption in here, and it is correctly formatted in here as a caption, it's a fig caption. And when I click on the image itself, you'll notice that it is an image, that the correct syntax has been added to it. But now what we want to do is we want to add our own selectors in here to organize it a little bit better, to give it some error around the text, to give some error around the image, and to make sure that it's centered. So I'll start by selecting the image. Okay, and I'm going to switch to make sure that I have CSS Designer. And I want to make sure that I have all sources selected. And I don't want Bootstrap here. I want to come down here and make sure that Green Styles is selected. And I want to make sure that we have global. Okay. So let's select right now, Bootstrap is selected, and I don't want to do that because I have Show Set turned on. So again, there's always something that I need to think about. And I'm just going to select all instead of that, so to make sure that I can select all sources and I can select Green Styles. But if you forget, and as I'm talking to you, I would forget, here's the current selection. And if I say Show Set, it's showing me what is, what CSS is affecting it right now, and it happens to be a bootstrap CSS. But if I try to select the green, green styles, it won't let me do that because I have show set selected. And you can see that right now, the only thing that is affecting it is vertical align middle. Okay, so we're going to leave that alone. That'll be fine. But I need to turn off show set. And I'm just going to select all so that I can select green styles. I can select global. And with that selected, I'll go ahead and I'll create my own selector here. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to select dot. So that's, double click in here to rename it. So for the class, remember, it's dot sidebar 2. To distinguish it from the left sidebar. And then what we want is space, and we want figure image, okay, IMG. Okay, so that ought to do it. And I'm going to check to make sure that my syntax is correct, and that looks correct. Now I can hit the return key twice to finish that. Go up, go here, and when I select that, it should highlight in blue, and it does, and I think I'm good to go. So the only thing that we want to do is a couple of things. We want to add margins. So let's come down to margin, and I'm going to go ahead and use the shortcut. And on the top and the bottom, we're going to use 0 pixels, but on the left and the right, we're going to select auto. So we'll put in 0 pixels, PX. And then space, and then auto. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the tab key. But you'll notice it doesn't move it over. So what I need to do in addition to that is under display here, what I want to do is I want to select block. And notice how that moved all of the images, because all of them are affected in there, and moved them to the middle. And the next thing that I want to do too is I want to check every time I add selectors like this, I want to see how it's affecting the other sizes as I move down in screen size to make sure that it looks correct. If it doesn't, and there's something that I need to change or add, then I might need to go to add another media query, or the one media query that we have added. I need to go ahead and make additions to that. So the next thing that we need to do, again, is I'm going to click inside here for the captions. These are fig captions, okay? So just click anywhere inside there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another selector. So again, it says section figure fig caption. But what I do need to add to this, because that would apply to any section with a figure and a fig caption in it. And I want it only to apply to sidebar 2. So dot sidebar 2, and make sure that I put a space, hit the return key twice. Okay, come up here, select here. And it's hard to see, but it is highlighted in blue, all of them. So I know that it will apply. And now what I want to do is I want to add margins to this. Okay, so there's a little bit more space around it. It's one of my pet peeves, is that when text butts up against the edge of a section or a div in some way, and there isn't any air around it, negative space for the eye to float around, and when it's too tight above or below, for the images above or below. So we're going to change that. So let's go ahead and change the margins. And I can use, shorthand, or I can just go ahead and click here. And I'm going to put 5 pixels for the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click to the right. And I want 10 pixels for the right. px, and I want 15 pixels for the bottom, and I want 10 pixels for the left. You can see that as I'm changing those, that they're automatically updating to the left. So this also will be 10 pixels to the left. And 10 pixels, I think, is a minimum to use. 15 to 20 sometimes works even a little bit better so that you have really an adequate amount of space around the text. So we're good to go. We can go ahead and I can go to File, Save All. Make sure that that's saved. And then I'm going to come back again and make sure that I'm saving it in the right location. And I'm going to do working file. Working file 1. Make sure that it's saved in less than 8. So I'm good to go. So let's go back and change some, go back to this again. So I'm going to go ahead and this is the easiest part and typically the way I add so that I can work in live view is I select the text within the H1 tag. And then I need to add, what do they want? Where was it? It was green start. Yeah. About Meridian green start. So that's it. This is our about page. So it's our, I just type it in by hand. My computer, for whatever reason, is slow. Okay, so I have about Meridian green start. And then green awareness in action. So this is for the heading 2 tag. I'll come down here. Or, again, sometimes if it might go a little quicker if I just put it in the code view. So why not? I'll go ahead and highlight in the code view. And sometimes that's just the easier way to go. So make sure that it's contained within the opening and closing tags. So just type green awareness in action. There we go. Okay. Now I'm ready to add the other. Now, this is a little bit different than what I had done before. Remember with the left and the right side, it had already been formatted for us. And this would be in case if I wanted to copy directly from another website or from a rich text format. And that's what they provided for us here. If I go back to my files and I look inside the resources, here is an RTF file. And this is for About Us. Let's open that up. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure that, because this is unformatted, I can select all and I can copy and I can do this in live view. I just have to make sure that when I'm in live view here, that with the paragraph tag that I have selected, that it's not in the edit mode, because if I click in here and I paste, notice how all those paragraphs that were separated are now combined. That's not what I want. So let me hit Command Z to undo. Let's go back and make sure that it's not in edit mode, but I see it highlighted in blue. And now I can hit Command V to paste. Now notice that when it's inserted, all of the separate paragraph breaks exist the way I want them. I don't want insert, content here anymore. So I can either delete it from here, or what might be better so that I actually remove, because if you don't, let me show you what happens. I'm going to go ahead and remove the text, but I'm going to leave the paragraph opening and closing tags. And you can see that there's a fair amount of space between green awareness and action. And as soon as I remove those tags, watch what happens. It's going to close it up a little bit. No, it didn't do what I had hoped it would do, because typically it will, by doing that, it will add space where space is not wanted. So the last thing, remember I had to, we added a description. And we also make sure that you add the, this is something that I did last Thursday. And so this is going to be, green start. About us. Remember, this is where when you open it in a browser, there will be a selector that exists. Okay. So now I can go ahead and I can save everything, and everything is properly formatted. And I've generated everything from a template. Now, to one little bit of review. So I'm going to go ahead and say save all. Is that, let's say instead of home, I want to say green start home, or green start home. Okay. Well, I can't do that inside my child page. I need to go back to the template itself. So I need to select the template, and I can click inside in live view. And when I do that, for me, it's easier just to go down to the code view. And now I'm going to write green start home. Now, notice what it did here. It went to a second line. You go, oh, shoot, I goofed it up. And you did and you didn't, but it can be easily corrected. So now I need to go back to the CSS designer. Okay. I need to go to green styles. And I'm wondering if you can remember where that's affected. So if I select anywhere inside here, well, let's go ahead and just select any one of these. And hopefully I can find, let's go to the row nav bar. Okay, and let's look at the layout, because I can tell you that's where it is. So I want this one, and if you recall, remember we had to specify a width, and we put in 715 pixels. Well, now what I can do is I can put my cursor inside the little spinner, and I can move my mouse to the left until, no, let's move it to the right. So, until it fits. So when you're doing your own and you're basing your page off of the lessons that we've created, this is something that could easily happen just by changing that. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is under assets. So let's go back to assets and let's make sure that everything has been updated. And now I need to make sure that this template, because we've made changes to it, there's a little asterisk up here that's been created that all the changes need to be saved. So I need to go to File, and I need to say Save All. And it's going to ask me, do you want to update the page, that child page that I created from that? And I'm going to say, yes, I do. Okay, so as soon as I update it, I can say, go ahead. Now I can close it. And now when we go back to that working file, you can see that it's been updated and everything works just fine. Now, it doesn't matter whether you have one child page, 5, 10, or 100, they will all be updated accordingly, unless you specify otherwise. And when you do add additional pages, it will ask you, do you want to update all of these pages? And if you don't, then you don't. Okay. So that's how that's done. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Well, then let's, how about with MobiRise? Do any of you have any questions about MobiRise? Have any of you started using MobiRise yet? No? Anybody? Remember, you can access a free copy of it from MobiRise's website for the Mac or the PC. It doesn't matter. Okay, well then let's continue with the lesson and finish up today. So this is the end of lesson 8. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to make sure that I have lesson, this working file saved here, file, save all. So that when I do that, not only do I save the page content, but I say if I've made changes to any of the styles or this the style sheets that they have been changed, edited and saved as well. That's important. So what I need to do, because I'm switching to a new lesson now, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close these just to be on the safe side here, just so I don't get confused. Then I get, when I'm talking to you, all of you, I get easily, confused. I forget. So I'm going to go to Site, Manage Sites. I'm going to double click on, Art 196 Spring 2021. And I'm going to change the root folder from Lesson 8 to Lesson 9. Okay, so that's going to be my new root folder. Now, if I select Save, or even if I don't, before I do that, let's go to the local info. And I want to, make sure that I add to the correct image folder. Okay. Now I need to make sure that I go from images to lesson 9. Did I select lesson 9 before? So let's go back in here. And I want to make sure that I select lesson 9. Again, see, I'm talking and not paying attention. So I want to make sure that I select the image folder inside lesson 9. And I'm going to go back again. I'm going to go back to the site. And I want to make sure that, I selected lesson 9. I'm talking to you and I don't remember whether I did or I didn't. Yeah, I did. Okay. So I should be good to go. So cache is going to be updated. I can say done. I'm closed. I can open up my files. And let's take a look at some of the files that we have here. So let's look at all of the finished files that we will be working on. I'm going to start with tips. Actually, let's start with green news because that's what we're going to be working on first. So in the remaining lessons, what we will be doing is working from the template that we created, and we will be creating various ways of adding content. Now you can see in green news, we're using still basically the same structure as that we had before. We're adding different quotes. We're adding different content, main content, and we're adding to the right side, we're adding some basic content. Now we've already stylized these, but we're just getting content from different sources. So if we look over to the right and we look at our resources, we're going to see what's available to us. So you can see we have for sidebar 2, here's some text. We have quotes. We have green tips, RTF, rich text format, and so on and so forth. So here's all of the resources. This is all of the content that we'll be copying and pasting in all of these. So that will be the first thing. This should be the easiest thing for us to do. Well, after that, the next one that we're going to do is we're going to look at tips. So let's open up the green tips finish. So this one involves lists. And this is something that we will have to stylize. So when I open up that file, you'll notice that we have, again, in the main content, we have different quotes, and we have, on the right side, we have some different information, but that's pretty straightforward. But you'll notice in the main section here, in our article, we have what are called unordered lists. And when I click inside any one of these, come on, there we go. You'll see that each one of these with a bullet point is considered a list item. So let's look at the code and see how that will be affected. that's what we're going to add in here. Okay, so I'm going to move this up a little bit, and you can see that I have all of these elements inside these unordered lists. If I come down here, and if I would rather have an ordered list, I can easily change that, and you would need the properties panel to be visible. So what I'm going to do in here is you can click anywhere and click on any one of the list items, but then in the tag selector down here, I'm going to select UL for unordered lists. So the whole unordered list is selected. And you can see that the opening tag is UL for unordered list, and the closing tag would be /UL. Now what I can do is I can switch down here, and there's these little buttons in the properties panel. So let me bring the properties panel up. You can see this is the little button for an unordered list. If I would rather have an ordered list, I can click on there instead. You can't have both. I mean, you can for different sections, but notice what happens. It automatically adds numerals to each of these. Okay. So it's very common in web design to use unordered lists. So I'm going to select again. I'm going to click inside here again. And I'm going to select the ordered list. Make sure that the whole list is selected. And I'm going to switch, and I'm going to go back to unordered list, because that's what we'll be working with. Whoops, I didn't select the whole thing. Just the list item. And that's, I don't want that. Let's make sure that the whole, oh, come on. Let me undo. There we go. So I have one list item selected. I want to make sure that the whole ordered list is selected. There we go. Now let's switch back to unordered list. But as I was trying to say a moment ago, is that it's very common in web design to use unordered lists to explain or present information in short bursts using bullet points. I think I've mentioned before that in web design, it's not a good idea to publish 10,000 word essays unless it's, you know, you're targeting a very specific audience. Most of the time, what you'll want to do is to give, you know, or present your information to people in short bursts and brief, concise format, and unordered lists are a good way to do that. Okay, so we have two that we're adding there. Let's look at contact us real quick, and then I'll show you events last. Okay. So you'll notice again, you know, that we've added phone numbers to the right, and we have different quotes to the left. And what I want to do here is you'll notice here that these different groups here have an interesting design element added to them. They have a border added, but remember I said that we could customize borders. They don't have to be borders that are added all the way around, that each side using the box model principle can be edited and changed separately. And so what they have done, and I like this as a style very much, they've added a thin line to the left and a thin stroke underneath. And in order to do that, what we've had to do is to each of these groupings, we've remember I said to customize content visually. Very often you're going to want to add something called a class. Well, what they did is we added a class name profile. And in that profile, we're going to do all of this on Thursday. Let me go back over to the CSS designer. And let me scroll down here and make sure that I have not all sources, but I want to make sure that green styles is selected and global. And I'm going to scroll down here to make sure that I have the section. Now within the section, H2, I want profile. So let's see if I can find it here. Click inside here. If I can't, there we go. Let's go ahead and select profile. I'll do it from the tag selector. And let's see if I can't find it in here. Sometimes there we go. There it is, profile. And when I click on the profile, notice that each of these separate sections is highlighted. And the only thing that I can change, if I want to look at show set, I can. And you can see that, you know, margins have been changed a little bit, but the same with padding. But more importantly, it's looking at the different borders. And you can see that with the borders all the way around, nothing has been changed. The top, there's nothing. To the right, there's nothing. But to the bottom, we can see that a 10-point stroke has been added, and to the left, a 2-point stroke has been added. So that customizes those specific groups, you know, even more. And it's a nice way to isolate content visually so that it's easier for the viewer to read. So that's something else that we'll be doing. This is a very long lesson, by the way, just to give you a heads up. And the last one that we will be doing, so let's go back to files. And I want to look at tables. Tables can be very useful. In fact, back in the day when web design was in its infancy, tables were used to structure the pages, not CSS, to organize them. Okay, so you can see in the main content here, we have a schedule that's been created using a table, and it's been styled very nicely. And I encourage you to save this lesson that you may want to use it in the future. You know, save the style sheet so that it can be used. You can see that we have it's been broken down, the table, into rows and columns. And we have under the first column, a date, and under the next column, events. And they're all styled really beautifully. They fit in each of these cells very nicely. Not only that, but then one of the last things that we do in this lesson is that adding to our, to our adaptability, okay, that as we scroll down and we make it for a really small screen, let's go all the way down to a phone. Notice how it changes for a phone so that content just doesn't shrink down in size, but it reformats totally in order to make visible easily the content. Okay, so that we have date, event, location, cost, date, event, location, cost for each one of these sections. And there's 2 tables that we will be adding. And again, we don't have to create them from scratch. It's, again, one of those tricky things of copying and pasting the existing table that they provide for us. And it can be done any number of different ways. You can use Microsoft to do that. You know, you can use Excel spreadsheets to add to your, you know, for your tables. You can create them by hand. You can use Dreamweaver to create your tables. It's up to you, and then style them. But when we go back, and that's what I want to point out before we do this. If we go to CSS Designer, and we look down here, and let me go ahead and select a table in here. So let me select, that would be table. Okay, so the whole table is selected. And if I scroll down and I look not at all sources, but I just want CSS for green styles, and I want it to be global, and I come down here and I scroll, and we look at all the styles that we've been adding in here, you can see that we have contained within each of these sections, okay, we have a section for the table itself. And you'll notice that the width has been constrained to 95%. Font size has been reduced to 95%. We've changed the font family to Arial. And there's a few changes that are being made, so that really works nicely. If we look at the section under tables, under table data, section for table header or heading, we have added padding for those so that there's sufficient space that goes around it. Also for section table header, which is unique, we've changed the color of the font. We've made sure that it is centered, not flush left like the others. So there's a lot of styling going on here. That's why I strongly recommend that once we're done with this lesson, that you save it, and anytime in the future, and I mean anytime you decide that you want to use a table and you want to style it, this would be the way to go. They have done a superb job in the lessons for doing that. So it will take us a while, and hopefully I don't make too many mistakes in doing that. It's easy, as I say, as I'm talking to you, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, and things can get goofed up very easily. And it will also require us going back and forth when we're copying and pasting and editing, back and forth between live view and design view in order to do this. So these will be the next group of content that we will be adding as child pages to our lessons. Okay, so if I go back to files, the one that we have already kind of finished basically, we did in the last one, in lesson 8, was the About Us. That's sort of their home page. Okay, so that's what we did in the last lesson. Okay, and you'll notice that the styling hasn't, that for that right aside got goofed up. So I might have to go back and edit that and change it and make sure that it's been changed for all of that. Okay. So that's just about where I want to leave this for today. And then on Thursday, we will start by adding content to the About Us again for this. And we're going to make sure that we go over again styling for the images and the captions under the images. And then we're going to probably we'll take it as far as we can go each day. So if there aren't any more questions, that's it for today. Do any of you have any questions? Yes, no? No? Nope. Again, you know, once these lessons are completed, I really strongly recommend that you save all of them, because it will make your task for designing your final website so much easier, because you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. You'll be able to build upon these and just, you know, copy paste content and change the styles which are already in place. Okay. And that's done all the time. That's what a lot of web designers do, that they work from templates. They save their templates, they work, you know, from those so that they don't have to start from scratch each time, and they just go in and modify existing templates to make it work for them. And in some cases, you know, you have to make significant changes, but, you know, if you don't have to, then you don't. And that's the way we're going to work. Okay. So that's it for today. I'm going to say goodbye, and you guys are free to leave. I believe I've taken roll for everybody. And then unless you have any questions, either about MobiRise or about lesson 8 and starting lesson 9, because we're moving along pretty smoothly now with this. It'll probably take us through next week to complete lesson 9. And then we'll have 10 and 11, and then we'll do a lesson 11. I'll have you publish that. And then lesson 12 will be kind of a bonus. Okay. No questions? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to pause the recording. And that's it. See you on Thursday.